my computer. Okay, so going back, we're looking for keywords and phrases. Now, when you are analyzing your questions, remember, as I've said many times, above all, this is a critical reading exam. That means that it's not just about the content, and they're not just testing you on the content. They're also testing how critical of a thinker and reader are you? How savvy is your eye to pick on nuances? And not for nothing, that's what we do in the classroom as well. So paying attention to the specifics of the language of the scenarios and questions, and also of the language in the answer choices. So reading it carefully through once, identifying keywords and phrases that are important, and then making sure the answer we choose, that we've given every answer choice its due process, which means you don't just say, oh, I like B and that's it, and you don't even go over the other ones. No, because they on purpose have answer choices there meant to trick you. Answer choices that statistically research-based, your eye is going to go towards that. I was just working today with a student. Let me see if she's here. Miss Sylvia, it's you. Remember, we saw that differentiation. They just threw in the word differentiate in an answer choice, and we thought, well, maybe that one. But the way in which they were using it, it did not address the goal of the scenario. So it was not the right answer, even though it is best practice to differentiate. And so making sure that you don't just pull your trigger on one answer choice because it looks good right away, that you weigh them in the same manner, each answer choice, and that you eliminate them, and that you can bet yourself $5 this is not the right answer. So we're looking at Mr. Chan, and he is pre-teaching. That's different than teaching. This is before we start the lesson. And they tell us another keyword and phrase, a specific linguistic level. The level of proficiency with language that they have, intermediate, big keys for us, big keywords. Mr. Chan is pre-teaching intermediate level English language learners key content area vocabulary. Content area vocabulary, another word for that is academic specific vocabulary. Very different from social vocabulary. Content specific vocabulary is much more challenging for English language learners to attain. Even native English speakers have difficulty with content specific and academic specific vocabulary. So they are reviewing content area vocabulary for an upcoming unit. He begins by telling them the definitions of the words in his pre-teaching. To most effectively help them comprehend the meanings, Mr. Chang's best next step is to have students do what? Now, every time you read the question and you read the scenarios, you should be doing several things. You should be identifying the goal of the teacher in this scenario. Like, what's the goal here? What is the question really asking me? And what keywords and phrases have I identified that I know need to be addressed in my answer choice in order for it to be correct? So what is the question asking? To most effectively, that one word most should set off like red flags, alarm bells, neon light sign, flashing sign. Most effective, most appropriate means they've given you possibly more than one appropriate or effective response. One is more effective or most effective based on keywords and phrases that they've given us to let us know what particular changes, what supports for particular students need to happen in order for the goal to be realized. So we have, the goal is to have the students comprehend. Another easy word for comprehend is understand. I always want for you to put the questions in layman's terms, means like translate it into normal talk. So how can we best help students understand the meaning of these content specific vocabularies prior to the unit? It's an upcoming unit. So what can he do in order to do that? That's his goal, is comprehension, understanding of these terms with reference to his lesson. So relate the words to their daily lives, create a sentence for each of the words, memorize the words at their relevant definitions, practice the words with word games and puzzles. So let's take a look at what is best. And we'll go back and look at a PowerPoint that I made for y'all today, or I started making, and then I realized we were going to be doing this instead. But one of the things that's so important for ELL students, because you're teaching them language and all they have is what they know already, their life, their real world, is connecting whatever, connecting the new language either to prior knowledge that they already have or their daily lives, real world experience, making a connection between the vocabulary or the new meaning that you're bringing and something that resonates with them in their daily lives. That prior knowledge, something that they can connect to, is going to be the lasso, if you will, to the new knowledge, to that new vocabulary word, to making it their own. No, connecting it to something that already is their own. So A is the correct answer, but going through these, creating a sentence for each word, if it's content specific vocabulary, can an intermediate level English student create a sentence for content specific vocabulary on their own? And would that help them comprehend the text that they're going to read at the intermediate level? I would say no. I would say at the advanced and the advanced high, they still would be able to create sentences in intermediate, but they're going to be very basic sentences, very like off of your example or off of things that they've seen before. And so it's not a great way to further illustrate or explain the definition of a word for ELL students. It is better to connect it to things that they already know so they can have a foundation in that knowledge. So B is incorrect, because while creating sentences for words is a good way to reinforce students' understanding of the words, the strategy is best implemented after they've developed personal connections to the word. So they can write sentences using the word once it's theirs, once they've made the personal connection and it's theirs. That's the way that it works. See, memorizing the words and their relevant definitions. Like, we have tried this way of just memorizing the words and the relevant definitions, but we're looking for the most effective way. Is it more effective for them to memorize straight denotation, which is the dictionary definition of a word, or illustrate the meaning via examples related to their daily lives in connection with things that they have actual real world experience from? So C is incorrect, because memorizing words and their definitions does not necessarily mean that the students comprehend the meaning or that they can use it. The goal is that they can use it again, that they can use it in their oral language proficiency, that they can use it in reading, that they can read it again in another passage used in another way and still gain comprehension. And strictly memorization does not guarantee that. Then you have practice the words with word games and puzzles. Now, I'm not a fan of word games and puzzles at all. Like, I'm an English teacher and I never left word games or puzzles in any shape or form from my class. In fact, I've had kids complain about how if other teachers are absent, they just leave, like, cross finds with the vocabulary. Nobody likes that. Like, nobody likes to do this, and it doesn't reinforce anything. Not really. Things are reinforced when they're internalized, and you only internalize things when you make a connection, when there's like that little glimmer of something that connects, and like, oh, I understand. Oh, I know what you're talking about then. And then it becomes yours, internalized, for you to use in a sentence, for you to use in a word game later. But if you don't already have knowledge and comprehension of those words, word games and puzzles, they're going to be exceedingly boring. They're already boring for kids that know the words and the definitions. They're going to be like so frustrating for students who don't. So D is incorrect, because while practicing words with games and puzzles is often a good way to reinforce students' understanding of the word meanings, I disagree. The approach would best follow learning the words personally. It's that they don't have those words really. And so this practice using sentences, practice strictly memorizing denotations without solidifying it internally with a personal connection is going to make it difficult for that. Does everyone sort of see the keywords and phrases and how they played into this answer choice?
Yes.
What about you, Mr. Barnes? Good to go? He disappeared.
Can you say the question again? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, no. That if you understood how that went down, like with the questioning and why one answer was better than the other.
Yeah, well, that's what I was referring to earlier when you asked how I said it went, and I was like, there was a lot of stuff I didn't know about. Like ELL was one of the things I didn't really know much about.
For sure.
That's why I put the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have whole videos just on ELL supports. There's a really good document that I showed you guys last time, and I go into deep detail on one of the videos, just the whole PDF. We go through it, all the different strategies with beginners, with intermediates. We don't have a whole bunch of strategies for advanced and advanced high because they just don't need as much linguistic support. It is our beginners and our intermediate students that really need that linguistic support. And one of the things that I wrote on my PowerPoint for this evening is that ELL strategies are just best strategies for everyone, honestly. Like nobody will be harmed by you pre-teaching vocabulary before you read something. Like everyone will benefit, not just English language learners. Everyone will benefit by relating, vocabulary to real world, real life, prior knowledge experiences. That is best practice for everyone, but it is especially necessary and demanded of you for those that are English language learners. So for sure, if they tell you in a scenario or in a question that the student is learning language, acquiring a second language, then you already know that you should be practicing in the scenario best practices for them, supporting them linguistically by pre-teaching any academic vocabulary, even social. I had classes sometimes with like 17 ELL students in the Valley, where my class had like 28 kids and 17 of them are ELLs. Like many of them were advanced high, but I had some intermediate, advanced, maybe one or two beginners. And you have to, every day that you are starting a new lesson, and every day that you're going to be saying and talking and conversing, and the students should be comprehending new words, you have to do a direct instruction. It is a rule that if it is academic or content specific, let me repeat this. It is a rule. Any new content specific or academic specific vocabulary, you must pre-teach before the lesson. It's sort of like common sense. If they don't know it, they've never seen it. But for ELLs, even if you think it's going to impede on the comprehension, let's say that the scenario is for an English language arts teacher and they're about to read a new text, and Miss Sauceda's class has 17 ELL students in it. Like, what would be the most appropriate first step for Miss Sauceda to do before she reads this new content specific text? And the answer would be pre-teach any academic specific or content specific vocabulary. And even if there's social vocabulary, if you know your particular students and they're not going to understand this word. I did it once for what was the word? Ruckus. I knew my students weren't going to know the word ruckus, and I defined it. It wasn't an academic word. I just didn't want anybody to be thrown off during the reading for them to know what a ruckus was. I laid the groundwork to make sure there were no impediments to comprehension based on my knowledge of my students. Typically, when you have good curriculum, they'll define anything that should be defined and sort of, but you have to go a step further in the classroom, because the textbook maker, the curriculum writers, they don't know your students. They don't know the particular mix and makeup that you have, the particular needs. So you might have to define more vocabulary than is designated in the sort of lesson in your curriculum, because your students need it. And it's no big deal. Take 5 minutes in the beginning of class to do that direct instruction of language that is necessary for comprehension, for understanding of what we're going to get into. And then you have less confusion, less issues with comprehension throughout the lesson. So vocabulary, not just with our ELLs, but especially but for all students, vocabulary instruction is so important. Giving the students opportunities to talk and use that language as an extension, very important. All right, Mr. Barnes, let's see that next question. Thank you so much for that. That was a good one. All right. At the beginning of the school year. Okay, so let me give you another note. If they give you a time marker, a temporal marker before the exam, before the lesson, during the discussion, before the discussion, after the discussion, at the beginning of the year, those time markers are important. We do different things in the beginning of the year, middle, at the end. We do different things before the lesson, during the lesson, after the lesson. So pay attention to any time markers. What should you do first? What should you do next? If the teacher scenario is talking about during class discussion, then the activity has to be during class discussion. It can't be something you send home with them. So paying attention to the temporal markers, very important. And this one right off the bat tells us, and this is the beginning of the school year. A 6th grade language arts teacher gives students a hand-shaped cutoff and tells them to write an I statement on it, focusing on something they like to do in relation to language arts. Okay, students then present their statements to the class and put their cutouts on the classroom bulletin. Which of the following teacher goals is best achieved through this activity? So again, we have at the beginning of the school year, and then we have a 6th grade language arts teacher. 6th grade is very special. It's one of the most special grade level. It is the most special grade level, in my opinion, like throughout K through 12, because EC through 6 goes through 6th grade. And then, but 6th grade is not with elementary. It is at the junior high on most campuses. And so there's sort of like elementary kids practicing at the junior high campus on a different sort of playing field. I never taught 6th grade. I taught 7th through 12 on purpose, because 6th grade was too elementary for me. Like they needed so much help, like help with the scissors. Like there was like a lot of elementary stuff going on. And I had small children and I didn't want to, super do that at work all day long and then go home and do it. So I specifically, wanted to teach the older levels, but 6th grade is a very sweet, and like it's right before they have their changes in puberty, their changes in like self-esteem. They're still elementary and they're burgeoning into that junior high world. So we have 6th grade language arts teacher. She gives them hand-shaped cutouts and tells them to write an I statement on it, focusing on something they like to do, something that's fun that they like to do, their choice, their interest, their preference. Students have them. Students will say, I really like illustrating for group projects. That's okay. You can say that. Cool. Like it's not so language artsy, but let them say what they are interested in. It is just my guess from reading that this teacher is collecting their interests in relation to her content area. Students then present their statements to the class, and then they put their cutouts up on the classroom bulletin board. So they present their statements. They use oral language skills, listening and speaking skills to present this interest and then place it on the board. So we are looking for the goal for this question. We're looking for why she did this. Like, what is her goal and how is that best achieved through this activity? How is she achieving the goal that she has that we're going to guess right now? So let's read all the way through, and then we already know the answer, but we'll just pretend like we don't. Assessing students' current skill levels and learning styles to appropriately differentiate instruction. So we already know A is wrong. Somebody tell me why A is wrong. I will bet myself $5 why A is wrong. Why is A wrong? Does it say anything about assessing anyone there? Not at all. An I statement on your opinion of what you like to do is not something that we can readily assess at all. It's an opinion, it's someone's preference. So we wouldn't be assessing their current level of skills. She's just not. She didn't assess reading or writing, or I mean, she possibly could have assessed their oral language proficiency when they're speaking, but it doesn't even say that. And we can't add more to the scenario. They are not assessing. So I know A is absolutely wrong. I can bet myself $5 because that's not what they're doing in this scenario. B, establishing a means to monitor student academic goals throughout the year. Now, I could see why you would have chosen this one. If the I statement had been focusing on a goal that they had for language arts, B would have been correct. If it had said instead of something they like to do, if it had been like focusing on a goal they have for themselves in relation to language arts, then that would have been establishing a means, because you could. They are setting their goals and you can monitor them, but that's not what they said. They're talking about student interest. What do they like to do? C, using students' diverse skills. And like I said, a student could say, I just like to draw for my projects. That's my favorite part, illustrating the writing that we do in our class. You're learning their diverse skills. Oh, so you're an artist. Oh, so you're a writer. Oh, you like poetry. Oh, you like comics, and you're finding their diverse skills. And this is at the beginning of the school year. So it's a perfect opportunity to gather information. And she could, even if she wanted to, this teacher could assess them, like for writing skills, like basic grammar, for oral language proficiency while they're presenting their statements and whatnot. But that's not what the scenario told us. Her goal is strictly to find out what they like to do in relation to language arts. And it's because she wants to, you like to do things you're good at. I like to do things I'm good at. She wants to know what they like to do in relation to language arts because she wants to know what they know that they are good at, because we like what we're good at. Planning instruction that helps students identify their goals for future careers. So again, if they had if the I statement had been something about goal setting or future careers, then that might have been an answer, but it's so not, because that's not, it doesn't talk about future goals. It doesn't talk about careers, none of that. So C has to be the only right answer, because we have here something they like to do in relation to language arts. And that would absolutely tell us their skills, their diverse skills in language arts, and the interests that they have. And it would create a sense of community, not just by having them do that activity. She creates a sense of community by having them present it to each other in the class and putting it up as an artifact, what they're all good at, what they all like to do. And everybody can go and be like, you like to draw. Can you be with me on my team so that I can have a good drawer? Like highlighting their interests and their skills on day one. Beautiful activity and something that would, be super helpful for the students. C is correct because the teacher is trying to promote a learning community where students are aware of their peers' interests and skills and can seek out one another as resources. Remember, she put that up there, and I can go up there and say, oh, Maria loves poetry and I'm not that good at Maria. Can you help me? Like I'm having difficulty with my rhyme scheme in this one. Just having that point of reference, highlighting people's skills, and they'll tell you what they like to do is what they're good at. What I like to do is what I'm good at. So does everyone understand why these ones are correct? And the others are wrong.
Yes.
Help me.
Excellent. All right, next one, Mr. Barnes. Mr. Barnes is leading this this evening. I do appreciate you loaning us your attempt. All right. Again, we have a time marker, 1 day a week. a middle school, and it gives us an age group. It doesn't really give us a grade level, but whenever they give you an age group or a grade level-ish, you need to take it into account. It's not always going to resonate with your answer choice, but most of the time it does, because the way in which the different sections of education are grouped, EC through 6, the middle age and high school, they're grouped that way for a reason, because the students' physical, cognitive, social, emotional development is sort of, the traditional or the same in those particular groups. So we are talking about middle school social studies teacher holds a class discussion on a current event. To prepare students for the discussion, the teacher sends home an article and a list of online sites related to the topic. The teacher also suggests that students watch the news for additional information regarding the issue. Which of the following is a primary benefit of the teacher's action? Another sort of red flag, that primary benefit, meaning there might be more than one benefit. We do things that have multitudes of benefit. And so the main benefit is the primary, the first reason, the main reason why she would do that. So they might have given you multiple benefits for this teacher action, but you need to ascertain the most important based on what they've told us. We know it's 1 day a week, it's middle school. They hold a class discussion on current events 1 day a week. And then to prepare for that, in preparation, the teacher sends home a paper article and a list of online sites where they can research more on the related topic. She also suggests that the student watch the news for additional information regarding the issue. Now let's take a look at, so we have paper document, extra research sites, and watching the news is what she suggests. They do it to prepare for her once a week discussion on current events. A is accommodating students' differing access to resources. B is using diversity to enhance and guide learning. C is providing instruction to support learning goals and objectives. D is differentiating instruction for students' varying reasoning abilities. Now, we're just going to go one at a time from top to bottom. So how does, if at all, we know that it does, how does the teacher's activity accommodate differing accesses to resource? This is about socioeconomic resources at the house. You can come up with an amazing activity every week, but if your students can't prepare at home to participate in it, and if some of them, let's say half of them can't, then half of them will not be able to participate and you failed half the class. So this teacher is differentiating in a way because she is sending different ways or providing different ways for students to prepare. You can read this paper article that I gave you and I sent home, or you have the internet. You don't have to read my article. Look at this list of related articles that you could look at, or you can turn on the TV and also watch some news to gather that. So they might not have access to the internet. We hope that they do, but they don't all. I have had many students that go to the library, the public library, to utilize internet resources. But that was more so in like 2012, but still. Sending home a paper copy of one article and giving them multiple areas. So maybe if they wanted to look up extra ones, they could also do it at the library with the extra sites and also watch home. So it provides different pathways for their preparation based on, because she knows they have different access to resources at home to prepare. So I have to give them enough possibilities to get preparation. Using student diversity to enhance and guide learning. Okay, she's not doing this at all. Like, using student diversity to enhance and guide learning is a great thing to do. We want to use student diversity, the diversity of our class, the particulars of our class, in order to drive the plan of our instruction, to drive our assessments. But there's no discussion here at all about diversity. She doesn't talk about a diverse student population. There's nothing there. And there also is no learning guide talk. providing instruction to support learning goals and objectives. Now, this one is wrong because she has not provided instruction. Instruction is I'm teaching you. This scenario, though, talks about a teacher that holds a discussion about a current event, and she sends things with the students to prepare. So it's not, it's more of a student-centered instruction type scenario, that conversation, and not a teacher-directed instruction. So she's not providing instruction to support learning goals and objectives. She really is not. She's not doing instruction here. She planned this activity and it's very fruitful, but it's not instruction in the traditional sense. And we don't know what her learning goals and objectives are. They didn't state them here. Differentiating instruction for students varying reasoning abilities. They didn't say anything about reasoning abilities at all. Like none of that. Like we don't know anything about the students. We just know they're middle school and in social studies. That's it. That's all. And then based on the answer choices, we know that they come from varying socioeconomic levels, but we don't know their reasoning levels. And so she's not differentiating instruction for reasoning levels. She is differentiating or accommodating access to information based on access to resources. So A is correct because sending home the articles shows students who do not have access to other sources of information on the issue to prepare. It's not shows, allows students to prepare for class discussion. B is incorrect because while student diversity might enhance the discussion, the teacher providing the article beforehand does not relate to diversity. There's nothing about diversity. Option C is incorrect because the exact learning goals and objectives for the activity cannot be determined from the information in the question. They said nothing about it, and she's not direct instructing here. Option D is incorrect because while the teacher can differentiate instruction for varying abilities during the discussion, the teacher's actions before the discussion do not provide such accommodation. So no differentiating for reasoning abilities here in the scenario.
Miss Sauceda, I have a question.
Sure.
B, it says using student diversity. Diversity meaning, what was it again? You had mentioned earlier.
So diversity can mean so many things. It's not just diversity is like their skill levels, right? They can be diverse. Diversity just means difference. All the many ways your students can be different. The fact that they're male and female, some of them have high socioeconomic status, low socioeconomic status, different cultures, different even religions, the different groups in which they exist in, the ways in which they are special, and I mean special in like that sense, like what makes us different from other people, and using those diversities to enhance learning, right? To enhance the strength. If you have some really high, a group of really high oral language proficiency students, like super high speakers, you can have them be sort of like group mediators in not group leaders, but group mediators, where they're like the wheel that greases the grease that greases the wheel in the group. And so you have enhanced learning using their diversity, using their differences, their specialties to enhance and guide learning, to make it more profound for them.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we go over domain 3?
Sure,
Or
absolutely.
this
Let's
is
take a look.
domain 2,
Mr. Barnes,
correct?
can we take a look at some domain 3? That also has domain 1 in it. If you'll remember, standard 1 is in there. So let's take a look at competency 9. Oh, well, 9 is technology, which let's take a look at some of those technology type questions. See what type of questions they're going to ask us from competency 9. I don't know if it tells you in that way. Okay, so a group of teachers work together to create a common assessment for an upcoming unit. Which of the following features of word processing software is best used for facilitating collaboration among the teachers on the assessment? So we have a group of teachers and they're working together to create a common assessment. They're all doing the same unit and they want to create an assessment for them. So we're looking for a software program that would facilitate that collaboration best when they're working on that. So we have capturing screenshots, inserting a table, tracking changes, converting to web format. So right away, I would guess, like right away, what came into my mind as I was reading this question and this scenario is Google Drive, like the Google platform, because that was the first place or the first platform where I did collaborate with colleagues and even with students. Like if the students were, that was what was great with using Google Docs with my students and their essays and peer editing, is that like if students edited things or made comments or made changes, those changes were tracked and you could identify like who made this change. And then if you didn't like it, you could go ask them like, hey, why did we change that? Like that's not even on this unit. It's not until next. Is this just like a extra credit or a field test scenario? So you tracking the changes in a group setting is going to be most meaningful as far as collaboration is concerned. So you can understand like who's making what changes and why. So C is correct because the track changes tool provides an efficient way for multiple users to share and see input as a document is reviewed and revised. And let me tell you, if you are a teacher, public school teacher, and you're having students write any sort of thing and revise any sort of thing, Google Docs is amazing because they can track changes. You can go in and see what peer editing changes a student particularly made very easily on each line. So it's really quite nice. A, B, and D are incorrect because capturing screenshots, inserting a table, or converting to web format alters the document itself. But the goal here, remember the goal, always ask yourself, what's the goal? The goal is to facilitate collaboration. And then that aspect, the tracking the changes is most important because that was the goal of this scenario. All right, next question. All right, so we have a little multiple choice thing. I think it's going to be a multiple question thing. I hope. I like those ones because I'm a masochist. Okay, so Miss Yan is using a weekly interactive online journal to encourage her middle school students to write about mathematics and to discuss concepts with each other. Students write entries related to one of the topics Miss Yan has posted. She hopes that the interactive online journal will encourage online dialogue among her students, both online and during class. So just to recap with the scenario. She is doing a weekly interactive. Interactive means people are interacting with each other. It's online. We have middle school students. She is applying writing and math, having them write and discuss math concepts with each other related to one of these topics. And it is her hope that the students will continue to dialogue, discourse, talk amongst themselves, both online and during class about these math concepts. So let's take a look at the question. Miss Yan is aware that 2 of her students do not have computers at home. This will be a thing that you have often. So students come from different homes with different resources. And so you have to keep that in mind. That's not to say you can't plan any fancy things. You just have to make sure that you have considered not everyone will have access to what's needed and that you have to provide alternative avenues for them to gain access and still be able to, complete the activity unimpeded, without much difficulty. So 2 students do not have computers at home, making it difficult for them to complete their weekly interactive online journal assignment. To best address, now they said the word best. So they could have just said to address this situation, but they said to best address the situation. So be mindful of the particulars, the keywords and phrases, because they might have given you more than one solution to the situation. So to best address the situation without depriving the two students of important learning opportunities, the teacher should. So we're looking for, the goal is, how can we make sure that everyone can participate in this wonderful assignment? Exempt them from their weekly journal assignment that requires internet access to complete. Provide them with internet access during the school day to work on their weekly journal assignment. Allow them to submit their weekly journal assignment on paper. Allow them an extra day to complete their weekly journal assignment. Okay, so let's take a look at this last part here again. To best address the situation without depriving the students of important learning opportunities. So she does it every week. Two students don't have computers at home, so they can't do the online journal. It literally is not possible. She can have them while they're doing other things and learning other things, do it during the day. She can say, you don't have to do that assignment, or she can let them turn it in on paper because they don't have a computer. And that's the right answer, because they're still doing the assignment. And you are not depriving, this is very important here, this without depriving the students of important learning opportunities. If you are providing them with access time during the day, the school day, to work on their weekly journal, then they're probably not doing something else you had planned for everyone else that was able to do it at home. And so that just leaves them out of the loop during instruction time for something else to make room for this. To circumvent that, I mean, best case scenarios, you would sit in computer home with the children, but at the very least, they would still participate unimpeded on schedule, not an extra day, because then when we come and talk about it later, you're behind the times and we've already moved on. So allowing for an extra day wouldn't work. Taking the opportunity for them to dialogue about math would not work, which is A. And then B seems like it's the best answer, but it's not, because they specifically said that you can't deprive them out of important learning opportunities. And if you were removing them from the school day to go do something else they could have done at home on paper, then you are depriving them of important learning opportunities, which is why C is the best answer. So I'm sorry, wrong. B is the best answer. Providing them, I said that wrong. Okay, so, okay. Well, I would say no. I would say because of without depriving the two students of important learning opportunities, you shouldn't do B and you should do C. But if it's unimpeded and they have extra time and you allow them to work during the school day, you can do that, but you certainly wouldn't want to impede or deprive them of learning opportunities so that they could catch up with something at home. You put C, and C is a reasonable answer. It is a way. In this scenario, it's not the best way, but it is a way to allow the students to participate in this activity unimpeded. They're saying that they're not going to miss any time, so that's good. Provide them with internet access during the school day to work on their weekly journal assignment, but like when, honestly. But this is a theoretical and you can't put too much thought into it. Best case scenario, make the time for them, but never pulling them away from instruction. That, like, we never do that. If we're instructing, we can't give them time to do blah, 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 because they need to be there via instruction. So B is correct, because providing the two students with internet access during the day gives them the same learning experience as that of the students who do not have internet access at home. So providing them, and like I said, the best way to rectify this would be to have them, and most campuses nowadays, they actually do have student devices that are assigned to them. Like most junior highs have a Google device, like a Google computer, or I know that ECISD, yeah, laptops, yeah, they have laptops now. So this is not as more so you're going to have students not have internet at home. They might have the actual tool or resource or whatever, but not the internet access is what you'll find. So never erase the activity. So A will always be wrong. B can sometimes be right. Not B. C can sometimes be right. If B is impeding or depriving them of important learning, then you wouldn't want to do that. But B here also gives them a little bit more, because this activity is not just about the students writing their responses or their ideas about mathematics. It's the dialogue, right? It's that interaction between the other students online. And I think that in itself makes B the better answer, because C doesn't allow for interaction. That does deprive the student of an important learning opportunity. The important learning opportunity here being deprived is interaction if they submit it with the paper. But I can see where you got tricked by that. I did too.
Ms. Sauceda,
Yes.
I think I would have also chosen C, but since it says it does mention computers, then you see, because I know that earlier I spoke to you and I was telling you that a lot of times I would get these wrong because I would put myself in the situation, in the
Right.
scenario. But a lot of these questions are really tricky. So I think I've now learned to just read what the scenario is and just go based off of that. And by it mentioning the computers, I would have had to choose B, but I think that C is a better answer.
Right,
overall.
absolutely. But given that the second leg to this part, or to her activity, like her goals for the activity are, yes, she wants them to reflect on mathematical concepts, but she also wants them to engage with each other, interact, discussing, dialoguing. She wants this dialogue among the students. That's her goal with this, right? To encourage that. In order to encourage that second leg of her goal, everybody has to be using the interactive online journals. So this was a very tricky one, and that's why you have to be so mindful and never too quick to I don't know why, because it was highlighted in yellow and I was just like, it's wrong, la la la, but just in my mind it was okay. Let's do the next one. Does everyone understand why B is a better answer choice than C?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so we have, while grading student research projects, so like we're grading research projects, a teacher observes that many of the students document unreliable internet sources. To best ensure students use the most reliable sources, the teacher should provide students with internet sites that list basic terminology, terms, and concepts, a list of several school subscribed websites, websites that provide examples of correct references, names of widely used internet search engines. And so this one is really a lesson in intranet. So every district has an intranet. It's like a closed server. The internet's all open and anyone can be on it. Not everyone can be in the PSJA, like ISD intranet. Within that intranet, we have several apps, we have databases that only we can access. And they are approved by committees and by boards. And some of those things are peer-reviewed articles, websites that are credible for our students to use. And so that is the safest bet for them, a list. And every district has a list, a database. Your librarian can help you with it, the technology person, but a database of resources that students can use so that they're not fishing in the internet for unreliable internet sources. In order for them to, sort of learn how to ascertain what's credible and not, we begin immersed in credibility, in the safety of the district intranet, in the safety of the school subscribed sites that provide, reliable resources for our students to learn and use. B is correct because by providing students with a list of school subscribed internet sources, the teacher is giving students examples of reliable, reputable sources for use in their research. A is incorrect because websites that list basic terms and concepts of technology are too broad to help students identify reliable internet sources. That's a skill that even adults don't have right now. So that's not going to help them at all. Option C is incorrect because websites that provide examples of correct references will assist students with learning the correct format for citing the sources, but will not necessarily help them understand whether one is reliable or credible. It'll help them cite it correctly in their writing, but not with the credibility gauge. Option D is incorrect because using widely known internet search engines will result in students accessing both unreliable and reliable, most unreliable. So if we let them go all into the deep sea of the internet, it's willy-nilly and a free-for-all, and people will come with all sorts of unreliable sources if you do it that way. But if it is focused and the students have access to a list of databases and websites, pre-approved, pre-vetted for credibility, for reliability, then students can build on those research skills in a knowledgeable way. Okay, next question. And you can go to whatever one in domain 3 that you want. You don't have to stay in technology. You can go to implementation, you can go to communication, whichever you want. Monitoring student performance, that assessing and monitoring of the students. A high school teacher is creating a mathematics unit assessment for the class. It is important for the teacher to align the assessment questions with let's go back and reread that. We have high school. They told us an age group or grade level. We're doing high school mathematics unit and we're assessing. This question is about assessment. So we're assessing math. It is most important for the teacher to align the assessment questions with and let's take a look at with what? What do we have to align our assessment with? The questions with? What should it be about? Objectives in the National Mathematics Standards, content of the previous mathematics unit as a review, interest of the students during the mathematics units, material taught during the mathematics unit. So the teacher is creating the mathematics unit assessment for her class. It's important to align the assessment with the material that is being taught. Do not assess your students over skills that you have not taught them. I always freak out when my students would come and say, I just took a science test and it was nothing like the review. I'm like, what do you mean it wasn't anything like the review? None of the questions on the review were on the test. I'm like, how? Like how? The material that you are reviewing and the material that is on the exam should be relatively the same. They should be almost identical, just formatted differently and asked in a different way. So it does sound a lot like the PPR. That's what everybody says. Actually, that's what everybody says for any TEXES exam, right? They're like, it just was nothing when I studied. But we, it's not a good feeling for students to take an assessment and they're like, I didn't learn this. I never learned it. When did I learn this? It's very defeating. Even if you did learn it and you're not doing that great, it doesn't feel good. Worse if you like, what is this? I studied for something and it's not. So the most important thing to do with your assessments is make sure that you taught the students these things, and that you reviewed them, and that whatever review you provided for them is commiserate with what they're going to see on the exam, that it is reminiscent, and that they leave there not saying, that was totally different. I don't even know why she gave us that review sheet. That was a total waste of time. That should never be said. It should always be aligned with what is going to appear on the assessment. So D is the correct answer, because aligning material to previously taught material during mathematics unit is most important when planning a unit assessment. What did they learn? And to be honest with you, not just like what they learned, what were my objectives? What were my lesson objectives? And that's what I should be measuring, because they should be able to do, and they should be able to know or identify knowledge concepts that we went over, and they should be able to do the skills that we went over. And so those things have to align. All right, next question. All right, we have another ELL. So I can tell you that ELLs, or the ELP strategies, come up in domain 3. Obviously, this is domain 3 because we just clicked on it. But you should know whenever they're asking you about ELLs, intermediate domain 3. Emily, a student in Mrs. Hess's class, has recently been boasting to other students about her connections to a local gang. Emily's friends, wait, this wasn't the one I was just looking at. Okay. Emily's friends, this isn't one about ELO. Emily's friends are intrigued and preoccupied by what she says and does. So her friends are intrigued and preoccupied, distracted by what she says and does. They're also showing interest in the gang. Which of the following is the most appropriate action for the teacher to take place? All right, take in the situation. So we have Emily boasting about connections. Kids are getting distracted and intrigued by what she says. What should she do? Alerting administrators to the problem and having them create and implement a punishment for the student involved. Calling the local authorities to alert them to the situation and have them deal with the students at an official level. No, you're not allowed to call the police on your students. Never, ever. Like, if the principal calls the police, that's a different story, but you are not allowed to call the police on your students. Requesting that law enforcement officer educate all of the students on gang activities and possible consequences. Ignoring the situation, assuming a lack of interest will diminish the student's interest in the gang. So obviously we know C is correct. C is a confrontational way of educating Emily and everybody else, with a person of power coming in, not to scare them, but really to educate them on the dangers and sort of like the fallacies, or like the faux family setting and all of those consequences that come up with, to deter from the intrigue, to deter from the preoccupation. They're going to be so preoccupied with joining a gang, if you know, you will go to jail for a very long time. And then gang members get even worse consequences in jail than normal criminals. Like, if you're a gang, you have less, what is it called? Privileges, because you have that affiliation to a gang, because they think they're going to be trying to. So all of those consequences being highlighted for them will help. You can bring it back. Will help not only Emily see the error of her ways, right? But also the friends that are there. Not for nothing, having a police officer in the class come and talk to you about gang life after you've been boasting about is you know, it's gonna resonate with Emily. Alerting the administration and having them implement a punishment for the students involved. No. We don't want to overtly punish the student immediately. Even the student that says that she has the connections to the local gang, creating that like sort of knee-jerk punishment reaction without educating. Now, if she continues and she's, you know, tagging the girls' restroom, then I guess punishments are coming for her. But the best course of action, this is just talk. And the remedy is more talk from a person, a law enforcement officer, someone who knows the ins and outs of that life and can remove sort of like that, what is it that I'm looking for, that like what gang life is kind of like in trend in some way, or here, remove any glamorization, thank you, Pearson, any glamorizing of gangs will be removed with the educating from the officer. So C is correct, because bringing in the law enforcement officer will provide an opportunity to educate students about the realities of gang involvement, correct any misinformation that the student was providing to the class, and then remove any glamorization of that the students perceive, because what the student could be saying like, oh, it's family, blah, blah, yeah, it's a family, and then they'll kill you if you mess up or throw you in jail, or so it's not really, and they remove all of that dressing and show it for what it is. All right, next question. All right. Use the information below to answer the question that follows. So we have offering students choices, incorporating real world application, designing appropriately challenging text. That appropriately means it's not ridiculously hard where they're not going to get it, because then it's not appropriate and it's not challenging. It becomes frustrating. So designing appropriately challenging tests. So a high school teacher can expect implementation of the listed strategies to primarily increase student this first offering student choices should tell you what are we trying to get at when we're offering them choices. Motivation. So motivation, getting students motivated, getting them engaged is sometimes difficult. When you offer them choices, that gives them motivation. They can choose which topic they're going to research. They can choose which project they're going to illustrate, or whatever the choice is, but that gives them agency, ownership. When you incorporate your lessons to the real world, when math becomes something that you see every day and you realize it more and more, that makes you motivated. When you see a connection to your real world, you internalize it, and it's something that you now need, not just something you're learning in a vacuum, something that's like nebulous and somebody wants for you to learn it and so you must. No, it's something that's connected to me. It appears in the real world. I see it in action, and therefore it resonates. And that designing appropriately challenging tasks. Anything that is too easy, like a word puzzle, is going to be boring for a lot of kids. Something that is too challenging is going to be frustrating. Designing appropriate level challenging tasks for your students where it's interesting and fun, and there's that level of like a little bit of a challenge to it, not outright impossible, that inspires motivation in a student, internal, intrinsic motivation for them to engage better in the learning activities. So B is correct, because the strategy in the bulleted list offers students positive perspectives of their education. Offering students choices allows students to develop a sense of ownership. Remember, I said it's agency and ownership in their learning, and they're more interested because they chose it. They like it already. They chose it. Incorporating real world application helps students see the value and benefits of the education. Why am I learning this? Why is it important for me to know this? Do I need this? Yes, I do. And so I will learn it. Designing appropriately challenging tasks engages students by maintaining their level of interest. Tasks that are too easy, oh, I just said that, become boring, and tasks that are too challenging become frustrating. That's exactly what I just said, and I didn't even read that. But yes, that's true. It is just so true. Too easy, boring, too challenging, and then your brain checks out. You literally are done. Nobody wants to do something that's impossible. You just like get frustrated and you give up, even adults. Okay, guys, we're gonna end here today, and we'll pick up again on Saturday. I hope to see everyone here. And if you haven't already, taken your practice test. I know we did some of the questions here, so you'll have like a couple of easy peasy responses, but just to see how you are, make sure you're using those strategies. And Mr. Barnes, I'd like for you to go through the ones that you missed and try to use those strategies to see what you know, why that answer choice is better.
I definitely will.
Absolutely, Stacy. Yeah, for sure. I'll stay after. And don't forget that Saturday we have a class from 11:30. No, sorry, from 11 to 12:30. And I'll go over the PowerPoint and we'll go over some more questions, especially if Mr. Barnes comes. And that way we can get more into the practicing of the keywords and phrases, identifying what's most important, identifying the goal for the teacher in the scenario. Do I have any questions?
No, thank you.
No, thank you so much for everything.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for coming on a Wednesday evening. It's hump day and you guys are stuck with me, but I thank you for choosing teaching. Teachers are the real MVPs, like literally of society, better than doctors, better than police officers, better than soldiers, better than all of them. Like we make all of the other professions, we nurture the children. We are the role models for people who have no role models, and it's a very big ask. So I super thank you for coming to class and spending the time to go over these things. Continue watching the videos, continue going over your strategies and dissecting your standards. And I'll see you on Saturday.
I have a question, Ms. Sauceda.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Miss
Bye-bye.
Sauceda. Thank
Yes,
you.
bye,
Bye.
Miss Ramos.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Yes,
you for
absolutely.
everything.
Absolutely.
See you on Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. I'll see you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so my question is, do you have any videos on these examples on YouTube that you're going over recorded by any chance?
Absolutely. Like where I go over the test questions?
Yes.
Yes.
So I kind of
Yes.
just
Yes,
rewatch
there's
all those videos.
there's many of them that are there, and like not all of them are like well described. I guess you could say. Let me look. But there are
It's
some
on your
like,
YouTube channel, correct?
yes, let me see. This out of the way.
Okay, perfect. So I could kind of get a muscle memory where it's at.
Let me see. So here, and then so, and there's some for each of them, like at each specific content area, I will go over different questions, but in this one we go over questions, and this one we go over questions, and then let me see, social most PPR critical reading. So here we go into the questions as well. PPR question breakdown here. So many of these have that, like if you fast forward midway, we usually do it at the end. I do like a little instruction going over like the different standards or the different domains and the different concepts or best practices that we have to keep in mind. And then we go into the breakdown of the questions.
Okay, awesome. Can you go up real quick so I could see your YouTube channel? Because
Absolutely.
I don't think I have it.
Who am I speaking to? I'll send it to you right now. When
Okay, Joelma Huerta.
Yes, I'll send it to you right now.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Sauceda. We'll see you on Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. I will see you.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Hi, Miss.
Hi, Miss Lopez. How are you?
I'm doing good. I feel a little overwhelmed. It's been a lot of stuff.
I know. I know. It
Yeah.
always is. It's a lot to become a teacher. People don't really understand that. And literally I was a new teacher once in 2003. I was a first year teacher with an EPP program. So I had to do what you had to do. And back then we didn't have internet. So I had to drive after I left my campus like an hour to Brownsville to go sit in these classes. But there's so much for us to learn, so much for us to discuss. There are so many responsibilities and like things that TEA has for us to like get done before we can be teachers of record. So I totally understand your frustration, and however I can help you, just let me know. Like if you
Okay. So I took the exam on